Getting my first tech job not only changed the course of my career, but the course of my life. It rapidly increased my earning potential and therefore the options that were available to me in multiple areas of my life. However, my path into tech looked different from other engineers. I didn't go to university and study computer science and use that as my entry. I actually did an apprenticeship style program, and that set me up for my long-term career. So I want to share that journey with you, and more importantly, some key takeaways if you're thinking of taking an alternative route into your next career or pivoting careers. I'm also excited because this is just in time for National Apprenticeship Week, so let's just get into it. So let's start at phase one, the challenge of getting my first job after university, because boy, was it a challenge. I graduated into a market that was not that favorable or kind to those that had just left education. And now I wasn't trying to get into tech when I first started looking. I studied geography and environmental systems engineering at university and thought I would take a route into consulting or some of the careers that are aligned with those sorts of studies. But what I realized after months of looking and also seeing graduate jobs in these sorts of industries close off, that this probably wasn't going to be a route that opened up to me in the near future. And I'll be honest with you, it was challenging, right? I effectively felt locked out of the opportunities that I had been working towards, right? Doing the right thing in terms of education and getting good grades, and then the job market really not responding or almost feeling like it's ignoring you. But as hard as it is to stay motivated when you're quite discouraged, you have to go on, right? It's a necessity. But I realized that if I was going to continue this job search, I needed to pivot and I needed to broaden the opportunities that I was open to. I really had no choice. So I continued my search. I was looking on job boards like LinkedIn, like Indeed, and I came across a really interesting opportunity. This company, QA, were going to pay you whilst they taught you some of these technical skills that related to things like software engineering and cloud engineering, equipping you with those skills. Then they were going to help you get your first job. They're effectively going to deploy you into one of their partner organizations, and so you'd have your first tech job. Now, this sounds incredible at first, right? This is an apprenticeship style program where I'm going to be earning at the same time as learning. But I don't want to pretend it was an instant yes, despite how good this opportunity was. I had, of course, planned on being a consultant or something else, and now I had to grapple with the fact that I was going down a different route. But the more I looked into the roles in the tech space, in the tech industry, and saw crossover between some of my interests, some of the things that I had even learned at university, like core skills, critical thinking, problem solving and reasoning, a process-driven approach to experimentation, even the fact that I had started to dabble in coding and programming, and suddenly it was starting to make a lot of sense. That with the fact that it was a growing industry, like tech was growing and booming, so job security was higher than some other industries, as was pay, and it kind of made sense. I ended up signing up. So I applied, I went through the interview process and was put on the cloud engineering track. And just a note about the interview process, I didn't need to be a programming whiz or tech genius to go through this. What they were really looking for was intent, I think, and an ability to go out, do research and practice on your own to get to the point that you could move through the interview and the take-home tasks, which is exactly what I was able to do. And so I was in. But now I'm going to share some of the key takeaways from this part of my process. And the first is the importance of being open to careers and industries that you may not have thought of before, right? There could be jobs and roles that you were just not aware of that align with a lot of your interests, your skills, but also your career aspirations, right? And so if you are open to them when you are looking for jobs, looking for apprenticeship opportunities or work opportunities in general, you might stumble across something incredible. Like I said, I'm an SRE now, and I didn't know what that was at the beginning of my journey. Even when I started university, I didn't know what that was. The second is being open to exploring the ways you're going to get your first job. I did not foresee that this would be the route that I took, that after university, I would still do another 14 weeks of intense training and studying before getting my job and then still learning on the job in that sense. But because at this point, whether forced to or not, I needed to be open to other opportunities, I was able to explore a really, really helpful and useful path for me in terms of my long-term career. And the final takeaway is don't let stereotypes or old stigmas around apprenticeships and different routes into work stop you from taking advantage of this opportunity here, right? In fact, the world is evolving and people are realizing that those who do apprenticeships or earning whilst they learn come with so many skills, valuable skills into the workforce and organizations. And so they're actually becoming a really important part, if they weren't already, of industries and organizations. So let go of that. Don't let those archaic ideas stop you from moving forward in your career down this route. So phase two is the training program itself. Now, this was actually one of the most intense periods of work that I've ever had to engage in. We were learning almost like 9 to 5 hours. So it was in the classroom or virtually in the classroom at this point, and learning from our teachers who was explaining key concepts, checking our understanding. We'd have tasks that we needed to do in relation to this. Again, building out these key skills in terms of projects. And we really had to lock in at this point. One of the great things about this training is that because it had been developed with employers, right, they had been asking employers what they needed in those key skills. It meant that as we were learning this theoretical knowledge, right, around programming, engineering, deployments, we were applying them to projects that tracked with the real world needs, right, the workforce needs. And over the period of this time, which was about 14 weeks, I was on the training period, we did 3 big projects that were, again, aligned with key skills that we would use whilst we got those first jobs and beyond, in terms of software engineering principles, deployment, things that fall under like CI/CD and DevOps, and just things in this general cloud engineering and deployment space. One of the projects I closely remember, and it was our last big project, was a group one. And this was really designed, I could tell, for us to get comfortable with environments that would mimic the real world, right? You're not just going to be building things on your own when you work in a company or an organization. Instead, you're going to be required to work in a team, collaborate and manage work. And that was the project that we did our final one, bringing everything together. We each had specific roles and we had to manage our time and our resources effectively throughout. I'll be honest, and I think maybe it's just how I see inputs and outputs. I gave my all to this program. And so that means sometimes I did work into the evening, like, once we clocked off, I wanted to keep working on my projects into the evening, or even using my weekends to make sure that I was really happy with what I was producing and the skills that I had. But it was completely worth it. Like, it's a case of, if you're willing to put in a lot into this process and these programs, you can get so much out of it. And that actually leads me into the key takeaways for this period. The first thing is make use of the resources that you have at hand, right? All of the things that they give you in the program, access to the mentors and the teachers, you can ask them questions. When I got stuck on something and I couldn't work that out through, Googling and other resources, I made sure that I asked to get clarity so that I could move on with that foundational understanding instead of just sitting there thinking, I don't really know what's going on. The second thing I would say is try to remove as many distractions as you can when you're in this process. Like I said, it can be very intense, especially if you are learning skills that you have very little or no experience in, all right? And so it will require that effort and that focus. And so try to be mindful of this and understand how it plays into the bigger picture. And finally, don't be afraid to take your projects and your work to that extra level. It's almost your portfolio effectively that you're building, especially in projects and programs like this. So put the effort in. Okay, so now let's move on to phase 3, which was my actual first role in a working production environment. So we had finished our training, those 14 weeks of learning, building projects, our portfolio, and these key skills that, again, tracked with what the industry needed. But then came time to start to basically put our CV out there and interview for some of these potential roles that we'd be going into. Again, all with the support of the program that I'm on. So they helped us carve out our CVs in line with what the industry would expect to see, drawing out those key skills in programming, in deployment, right? Explaining our projects and so forth. And then we interviewed. So I actually ended up in my first job as a site reliability engineer in the insurance industry. Now, it's actually interesting because up until that point where this SRE job had been put in front of me, I wasn't aware of this role, that it existed. Like, in fact, a lot of people in tech are kind of aren't sure what SREs do. But the more that I unpacked it, again, kind of similar to that initial phase when I wasn't sure that I even wanted to be an engineer, but the deeper I looked into it, the more interest and like crossover I saw with things that I cared about, that I'd want to do. I was like, this role seems really interesting. It's very dynamic. You have to rely on a number of skills, which is key for someone like me who has multiple passions and interests and likes to explore my curiosity. But it was a well-respected role as well that had, let's be honest, good options in terms of pay and employability afterwards. And so the employer was happy with me. I was happy to get started. And thus the journey into my first paid job in tech actually started. And this was an interesting experience. I really, really enjoyed the process of learning on the job and like learning as it pertains to the things that were needed in this company. And at times it was challenging, right? We had done 14 weeks of training where some people maybe do computer science for years. I mean, I still, though, was able to do work and learn next to people who had computer science degrees, right? We was all still on this same path. And I actually felt that perhaps we brought new and different perspectives to the organization because we had done an alternative route, like we had taken an alternative route into tech and engineering. It was great because I had a really supportive team, manager, who were like invested in our success. Again, they knew that this was an apprenticeship style position and that we had come from that training. And so they were invested in us doing well. So if we did struggle at times or we needed a bit more support, they were there for that. And that's just, again, one of the pros of being on a path like this, where everyone is aware that you are here to learn on the job effectively. I made it a point to absorb as much information as I could whilst I was on this job, to learn as much as I could, to take advantage of the opportunities that were there. And that's how I ended up in my first couple of months on a very, very big project for someone so early into the industry. I ended up being the second engineer. Effectively, there was one senior and there was me on a very big migration project. We had to get from one tool effectively to another observability tool in a very short period of time without disrupting reliability or operations. And my manager, again, gave me this opportunity, despite the fact that he probably could have picked, another engineer, someone with more experience. But I think because I showed that energy, that tenacity, and that willingness, I was given that opportunity. And it was one of the best decisions I've made in my early career, because I was able to learn so quickly, all right, some of these key skills that maybe others who had taken a different route or not put their hand up for a project wouldn't have had those skills so early on, and that experience with a high intensity project in that tech space. And so this first job allowed me to build so many of those key skills that would be the foundation of my knowledge and experience moving forward and beyond that particular role. All the while being now paid a salary and like being able to do more of the things I enjoy also outside of work because of this, and living in London. And so here are some key takeaways from this part of my journey. The first one, I think, is to take advantage of opportunities that allow you to develop skills quickly and really expand your knowledge. Like I was saying, that project allowed me to accelerate very quickly in this and get to a level of understanding and comprehension and experience that maybe others wouldn't. And so seek out those opportunities and don't be afraid to put your hand up. If you get it, you get it. If you don't, we'll try again the next time. The next takeaway is make connections with your coworkers and your managers, right? Build out those skills beyond just the technical. Like in the workforce and working with a company, it's not just about your technical understanding, but your ability to work in a team, to make and nurture relationships with other people in the company, right? To seek out help when necessary, to help others when necessary, right? As they start to build those skills that are also important along a career path. Leading on from that, don't be afraid to seek out advice from people that are senior. Again, they're invested in your progress and success once you're in the company. And so make sure that you use them and lean on them when you need to. Don't feel like you're in this on your own. And finally, be cognizant of what I call the slingshot effect, right? So at the start, you might not be earning as much as you want to in this type of program or style of getting into tech or any job. But yet think about it as a slingshot. So you have to pull it back, right? Put it back before you set it off. And at that point, it may seem like it's behind everybody else, or like it's just not where it wants to be. And yet, because of the store of all this potential energy that you're building as you pull it back, when you let it go, it can extend far, far beyond even your wildest dreams, effectively, right? It can be set off on a trajectory like no other. And so think about this program and any route that mimics this like that. Yes, right now I'm not making the most. Even in training, there are people who would have been making more than me during my training period. But yet when I was able to use all those skills, that knowledge, that experience that I have, I was able to set off on a career that would again change the course of my life. And so this brings me to the final phase where I am now, right? Beyond the program. I've said this many times over the years, but the decision to start on this program, this track of earning while you learn and effectively learning on the job, was one of the best decisions I have ever made. It allowed me to build the skills and the confidence to go for more complex roles, higher paying roles, like beyond just that program. And I'm still in this field today, several years on, not only, developing my own career and experiences, but now also sharing that with others, right? I've been able to share what it was like for me to learn these skills, to go through this path, to be in tech, to navigate this space, and encourage others to track on a similar journey. I genuinely wish more young people or people pivoting careers knew about some of these alternative routes for gaining key skills and experiences, like apprenticeships and like these styles of programs. So whatever stage you're at, know that help is available. You can find resources to help you discover training, apprenticeships, and work opportunities at Job Help. And I'll leave a link in the description so that you can go straight to this yourself and discover some of the opportunities that may be out there and suitable for you. I'm going to say thank you to the Department for Work and Pension for partnering with me on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.